What's going on, guys? It's Jordan from Rushing Productions. I wanted to talk briefly about something I've seen on some of the photography Facebook groups that I'm a part of, where there seems to be a growing trend, and rightfully so, of photographers who are wanting to get into videography, whether that is trying to go there full time or do both photo and video. I wanted to give my 5 top things that you'll need to know and understand before you can really fully go into video. So first and foremost is that with photography, you're most likely going to be using strobe lights, which are going to be the quick flash ones, which are awesome for photos because they can overpower basically any light in the area. But unfortunately for video, they just don't work. They just show up as a blip of light and then it goes back to darkness. So for video, you're going to have to switch over to constant lighting. That's what I'm being lit with right now, is a constant LED panel. I also have a second light over here. Alexa, turn couch middle to 50%. Okay, that's a little bit better. It might be still a little bit too dark. Okay, I'm happy with that. So you're going to want to switch over to constant lighting. That's what I have right now. I have my LED panel. I also have a secondary light over here, getting like a little bit of a fill. There's a lot of lights out on the market that you have to choose from. The Aperture 120D is a good one. It's probably one of the best ones on the market, with the Mark II, not the Mark I. It's pretty expensive though, and something that, it's one of the reasons why I have not moved over to that, is just because it's really expensive. I think it's like $800 for a single light. You're going to get really good light quality with it, but again, at the cost of your wallet. There are definitely a lot of other options out there. I'm using an LED panel. There are a lot of videos online about whether it's best to do a CIB, which is chip on board LED, versus an LED panel. An LED panel is just going to be cheaper. It's also going to run a lot cooler than a chip on board. A chip on board is essentially a single LED, even though it's not. It's really a lot of mini LEDs, all compact in one little space. So those are the 2 main ones that people are switching over to from the incandescent bulbs. I wouldn't recommend doing incandescent just because of how hot they get. You will melt your talent with incandescent bulbs. I pretty much guarantee you that. So if you want more information about constant lighting, go down to the description on the point 1, and I'll link to a few different YouTube videos that will explain the differences and the differences in cost and whatnot. There's a couple of great ones from DSRL Video Shooter where he goes through all the different kinds of LED panels and the costs and what they really offer you. The second thing is going to be audio capture, and that's what I'm using right now. I have this Zoom H5 right here. This is a handy field recorder. It's a prosumer level, so it's not as good as a professional one, but it is something that more than gets the job done. Obviously, for photography, that's not something that you really have to worry about, and honestly, with some videography, you don't have to as well. I mean, the biggest thing I'll say is if you want to capture audio, please don't use the onboard audio from the camera. It's just god awful. Don't use it at all. Your best bet if you're trying to go cheap. So if you're trying to go cheap, I would recommend something as simple as a Rode shotgun mic. This is not the battery powered one. This is just the Rode Mic Go, not the Video Mic Pro. So the Go is not battery powered. That means there's no preamps in it. It will be slightly better than what is in your camera. It's not as good as a Video Mic Pro, which has the preamps, which actually gives you a cleaner sound, not as much noise. If you're just trying to do some simple like lifestyle videos and whatnot, and you don't really care about the audio quality, this is a good first step. The one thing that I'm really going to stress though is how important audio is. And a lot of people think that that's one of those things that I can get by with not having audio. Let me put it this way. If you have a TV show on and there's no sound coming out, you don't watch the show. You just don't. But you can listen to radio. Humans can absorb content through audio much more than video. That's why some like the best movies out there have incredible music, because it really captures the audience's attention. It really helps to drive that emotion. Video itself just doesn't work. You have to have some kind of audio, whether it's music or people talking or both of them. take this video for example. This wouldn't really work if I didn't have audio or it sounded really crunchy. Like, it just, if the audio sounds crunchy, people are going to turn away from your video very, very quickly. And as videographers, we want people to see the content that we make. Otherwise, there's really no reason to actually make it besides making it for ourselves, which I mean, yes, some people just want to create for themselves, but that's pretty selfish. We should make stuff that will allow people to enjoy our work. And audio is a huge, huge proponent of that. I know when I first switched from photography to videography, I did a lot of research into it and really came to the conclusion that my very first purchase had to be audio gear. I got a few voice recorders and like little lav mics, and I stumbled upon this guy in a garage sale and got it for like half off. I was very lucky with that. The nice thing about something like this also is that they're not really that expensive, relatively. I think that this one, the Zoom H5, goes for $250, I want to say. There's a similar one, which I don't think the preamps are just as good, but it's still all around a very good field recorder, which is the Zoom H4n Pro. There's H4, H4n, H5, and H6. If you want to get really good preamps, if you want to get a nice display, the H6 is going to be your best bet as far as Zoom is concerned. Zoom is the brand, but at the cost of, I think I want to say like $300. Still relatively not super expensive, but if it's your very first videography purchase, it might seem like that. Point 3 is going to be constant capture. So one of the nice things about photography is that you can actually just focus on getting a single image, whether it's somebody crossing the line at like a race, or it's a plane flying through the sky. You can capture that single shot. But with videography, you have to keep that subject in frame the entire time that you're actually capturing it, and that you need the actual footage. And this is really important because not only are you keeping them in frame, but you have to keep them in the composition that they need to be in. So if they are, faced camera right, they need to be on the far left, or vice versa, whichever way I'm facing right now. So if they're over here, they need to be faced that way. So like this, and they need to be constantly in this third. Or if you want to make a powerful image, in the middle. And if I keep them moving around, you have to move the camera with them, which is definitely a skill that is best learned through experience, just because you can't really teach that. You have to understand that you have to keep them in frame and in the best composition possible. And when you're dealing with holding a camera for that long, with photography, you can actually with photography, you can get that image that you want and put the camera down or rest it. But with videography, you have to keep on holding the camera and keep that frame. And it's tiring. It really is. So make sure that you practice your framing and composition and keeping the subject in frame for as long as you need the actual footage for. Point 4 is motion. So there's a great video that I saw the other day from a guy who was talking about the new Macbeth movie. I think it's from 2014 or 15, 16, whatever it was. New. And he's talking about the cinematography that was used in coloring and whatnot, but there's a great section on motion where the DP, the director of photography, aka the master videographer, they use great motion, whether it is the subjects moving in frame against a background, or it's the subject staying still and having either the background moving or nature moving or whatever it may be, but always having motion in your captures. That way there's always some kind of emotion. Motion creates emotion. So always make sure that you're capturing some kind of motion. One thing that I always like to do in my videography is, if I know that there's going to be a still subject and I don't have control of the environment, this is not a professional shoot, like a wedding, for instance. If I'm capturing someone at the altar, sure, I can put my camera on a tripod and just capture that. Maybe I'll have a secondary or a third camera capturing different angles, but it's stale. It's not moving, and it gets very tiresome as a viewer. Like, there's nothing really going on. Everyone's staying still and words are just being spoken. That's not emotional. It doesn't bring anything to the table. So again, motion creates emotion. So for me, I'll have on So previously I had my glide cam to do this. Now I've switched over to the gimbal, so I'll be able to have my gimbal to create motion. Even if it's something like doing a little bit of sway back and forth, just creating some motion in your footage can go a long way. The last thing is going to be your frame rate and your shutter speed. So in both photography and videography, you can just put your camera in auto and just shoot. But that's not why we're here. We want to make sure that we're shooting quality and capable videos or photos, and using the tools as they should be used, I think, is paramount. There you go, guys. 5 things you need to know about switching from photo to video.